What if I told you that the snack immortalized in the most famous baseball song in America, Buy Me Some Peanuts and Cracker Jack, was invented by a German immigrant who had been selling popcorn on Chicago street corners since 1871, debuted at the 1893 World's Fair, and named it because a salesman tasted it and yelled, "That's a Cracker Jack," which was 1890s slang for something outstanding? That the same 1893 World's Fair that gave America Cracker Jack also featured the first Ferris wheel, juicy fruit gum, and Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. And that Chicago invented all of them? That a Chicago restaurant invented the chocolate brownie not as a dessert, but because a wealthy socialite told the chef she wanted something she could eat at a fancy banquet without a fork? Chicago? The Windy City? The city of big shoulders? The third largest city in America and, by any honest accounting, the most inventive food city in the country. A place where the World's Fair came twice and each time changed what America ate. Frederick William Ruckheim arrived in Chicago in 1871, the same year as the Great Chicago Fire, and began selling popcorn on the street corners to the workers who were rebuilding the city. He had come from Germany. He had very little. He had a recipe for popcorn and a city full of hungry people. By 1893, Chicago was hosting the World's Columbian Exposition, the World's Fair that drew 27 million visitors to Jackson Park on the south side and introduced America to the Ferris wheel, to the idea of a planned urban environment, and to a specific German immigrant's new popcorn creation. Ruckheim and his brother Louis had developed a recipe: popcorn, peanuts, and a molasses and sugar coating that kept the mixture from sticking together. A technical problem that Louis solved with a secret process the family never disclosed. A salesman tasted it. He yelled, "That's a Cracker Jack!" The 1890s slang for something excellent. The brothers liked the name. In 1896, Cracker Jack was officially trademarked. By 1912, the company employed 700 people at its Chicago factory. On February 19, 1912, someone at the company had an idea. Put a prize in every box. Not in some boxes. Every box. 17 billion toys have been given away in Cracker Jack boxes since that decision. In 1908, the song "Take Me Out to the Ballgame" was written on a subway train in New York by a man named Jack Norworth, who had never attended a baseball game. The lyrics included, "Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack." The song became the anthem of American baseball. The snack became the snack of the American summer. In 1893, the same year as the World's Fair, a socialite named Bertha Palmer was planning the dessert menu for a banquet at the Palmer House Hotel. She had a specific request for the hotel's pastry chef. She wanted a dessert that ladies could eat at a lunchbox affair, something smaller than a slice of cake that didn't require a fork or make a mess. The pastry chef created a small, fudgy, dense chocolate cake, baked in a pan and cut into squares. He topped it with an apricot glaze and walnuts. It was served at the banquet. It was consumed without forks. It was a success. The Palmer House Brownie, the original Chicago brownie from 1893, is still on the menu at the Palmer House Hotel today. The recipe is unchanged: a dense chocolate base, apricot glaze, walnut topping. The hotel serves thousands of them. The recipe is available on their website. They call it the original brownie. The chocolate brownie spread from the Palmer House to home kitchens across America in the early 20th century. Every brownie recipe, every brownie mix, every brownie in every bakery in America traces to a social request at a Chicago hotel banquet in 1893. Bertha Palmer asked for something women could eat without a fork. There are rules. A Chicago-style hot dog is a Vienna beef hot dog, specifically Vienna beef, specifically the natural casing version that snaps when you bite it, in a poppy seed bun topped with yellow mustard, chopped white onion, bright green sweet pickle relish, a dill pickle spear, tomato slices or wedges, pickled sport peppers, and a dash of celery salt. 7 toppings, in that order, never ketchup. The never ketchup rule is not a preference. It is a civic position. Chicago hot dog stands have signs that say, "No ketchup." Some refuse to stock it. The Chicago Hot Dog Hall of Fame, which does not actually exist but should, would have a wing dedicated to the anti-ketchup commitment. The Chicago dog was born at the 1933 World's Fair, the Century of Progress exposition, when street vendors needed to sell a hot dog that was filling enough to serve as a meal to Depression-era visitors who couldn't afford much. The solution was vegetables. Add enough toppings to the hot dog and it becomes nutritionally complete. The seven-topping hot dog that emerged from the Depression is now the most regulated hot dog in America. The song Dragged Through the Garden refers to the tomato, the relish, the peppers, the pickle, all the vegetables that a Chicago dog accumulates on its journey from the steamer to your hands. Every ingredient has a purpose. In 1943, a man named Ike Sewell and his partner Rick Ricardo opened Pizzeria Uno on the corner of Ohio and Wabash in Chicago. Sewell had been to Italian restaurants. He had eaten Neapolitan pizza. He wanted something different, a pizza built for people who were hungry, who wanted a meal in a single dish, who needed substance. The deep dish pizza they developed was not a pizza with toppings. It was a construction. A thick, buttery, flaky crust pressed up the sides of a deep pan, filled with layers of mozzarella cheese, then meat and vegetables, then crushed tomatoes on top, assembled in the reverse of every other pizza tradition because the tomato goes on top to prevent the crust from burning during the long baking time the deep construction requires. The whole thing bakes for 30 to 45 minutes. You order in advance because the wait is built in. The deep dish pizza is not what Chicagoans eat every day. Tavern-style pizza, the thin, cracker-crust, square-cut pizza that is available at every neighborhood bar and pizza shop in the city, is what Chicagoans eat every day. But the deep dish is what Chicago is known for, what tourists come for, what becomes the argument with New York and Naples about what pizza actually is. Pizzeria Uno is still at the corner of Ohio and Wabash. The Italian beef sandwich was born in the Italian immigrant neighborhoods of Chicago in the 1930s, when Depression-era economics required a way to stretch a small amount of beef into a substantial meal. The solution was the roasting technique and the juice. A beef roast, top round or bottom round, is seasoned heavily with Italian herbs and spices, slow roasted until the internal temperature is medium rare, then shaved thin with an electric knife. The shaved beef is submerged in the cooking juices, the gravy from the roasting pan, combined with beef broth and the spices, and reheated in the juice until the meat absorbs everything around it. The sandwich is assembled on Italian bread, a specific Chicago bread, crusty outside and soft inside, with the beef piled high. Then the choice, dry, meaning the bread is on the side and the beef is on the beef. Wet, meaning the assembled sandwich is dipped in the beef juice, or super wet, meaning you stand at the counter and eat it over the pan while the juice runs down your arms. The giardiniera, the pickled vegetable mix of pepperoni, sport peppers, celery, carrots, cauliflower, and olives in oil, is the standard topping, hot or mild. Always present. Al's Beef, founded in 1938, is credited as the original Italian beef restaurant. The sandwich spread through Chicago's Italian neighborhoods and from there to the city at large. In 1930, a man named James Dewar was working as a baker for the Continental Baking Company in River Forest, a suburb of Chicago. The company's strawberry shortcake fingers, baked in small oblong pans, sat idle most of the year because strawberries were only in season for a few weeks. The pans were expensive. The idle time was waste. Dewar had an idea. Instead of strawberry cream, fill the fingers with banana cream. Banana cream was available year-round. The shortcake fingers could run continuously. He baked a batch, filled them with banana cream, and took them to his boss. He named them Twinkies after a billboard he had seen for Twinkle Toe Shoes in St. Louis. The original Twinkie was banana cream. During World War II, banana rationing made bananas unavailable. The filling switched to vanilla cream. When the war ended and bananas returned, the vanilla cream stayed. Americans had become accustomed to it. The Twinkie became the most famous snack cake in America. It is the snack cake of the American lunchbox, the snack cake of the convenience store, the snack cake that became a cultural shorthand for processed American food. The original was a banana cream cake invented by a Chicago baker who didn't want to waste his pans. In 1891, a young man from Philadelphia named William Wrigley Jr. arrived in Chicago to sell soap. He was 29 years old and had $32 in his pocket. To encourage retailers to stock his soap, he offered free baking powder with every order. The baking powder became more popular than the soap. He switched to selling baking powder and offered free chewing gum with every order. The chewing gum became more popular than the baking powder. William Wrigley Jr. switched to selling chewing gum in 1892. He introduced juicy fruit in 1893, at the World's Fair, where it became a sensation, and Wrigley's Spearmint in 1893. By 1910, Wrigley's Spearmint was the best-selling chewing gum in America. By 1920, Wrigley had built the Wrigley Building on Michigan Avenue, one of the most recognizable buildings in Chicago. The Cubs played at Wrigley Field, named after William Wrigley Jr., who bought the team in 1921. The man who came to Chicago to sell soap pivoted to baking powder, pivoted again to gum, and built an empire that included the most beloved ballpark in America, all from a product he started giving away for free to sell something else. The original Wrigley's gum is still made. Juicy fruit is still made. In 1996, a Puerto Rican restaurant owner named Juan Peter Figueroa was reading a newspaper in Chicago's Humboldt Park neighborhood, the heart of Chicago's large Puerto Rican community, when he came across a recipe for a sandwich served in Puerto Rico that used fried plantains instead of bread. He had never seen the dish in Puerto Rico. He had never served it at his restaurant, Borinquen restaurant. He tried the recipe. He pressed 2 pieces of fried flattened plantain around a filling of garlic-marinated skirt steak, American cheese, lettuce, tomato, and mayo. The same fillings as a standard sandwich, but with the sweet, slightly caramelized fried plantain replacing the bread entirely. He put it on the menu. Chicagoans discovered it. The Jibarito spread through Chicago's Puerto Rican community and from there through the city's broader food scene. It is now on menus at Puerto Rican restaurants in New York, in Miami, in cities across the country. But it was invented in Chicago in 1996 by a man who read a recipe in a Spanish-language newspaper and decided to try it. The Jibarito has no equivalent in Puerto Rico. Saganaki is a Greek dish, a hard cheese, typically kefalograviera or graviera, fried in a small pan until the exterior is golden and the interior is warm and yielding. It is eaten in Greece at every mezza table, at every taverna, accompanied by bread and lemon juice. It is not flambéed. It is not set on fire. It does not involve theatrical exclamation. In 1968, Christos Liakouras owned the Parthenon restaurant in Chicago's Greektown on South Halsted Street. He was trying to think of ways to make Saganaki more exciting, to give it a presentation that would make it memorable, that would create a moment at the table rather than just a dish. He poured brandy on the cheese and lit it on fire. Then, inspired by the moment, he yelled, "Opa!" the Greek exclamation of joy, the word used at Greek celebrations when plates are smashed, as he brought the flaming cheese to the table. The flaming Saganaki was born. It spread from the Parthenon to every Greek restaurant in Chicago and from Chicago to every Greek restaurant in America. The tableside flame. The opa. The brandy poured from a pitcher and ignited before the server reaches the table. None of this existed in Greece. All of it was invented in Greektown on South Halsted Street in 1968. Greeks who visit Greek restaurants in America and encounter flaming Saganaki are sometimes confused. The dish they grew up eating was fried, not flamed. The opa was added in Chicago. Greece has since adopted the theatrical version in tourist areas because tourists expect it. 1949, a man named Garrett Willis Popcorn opened a popcorn shop on North Michigan Avenue in Chicago. He sold popcorn from an open kettle, fresh and hot, in flavors that expanded over the years to include caramel corn, cheese corn, and the combination that became the brand's signature, Chicago Mix. Chicago Mix, caramel corn, and cheese corn mixed together in the same bag should not work. The sweet and the savory. The sticky caramel and the powdery cheese. The 2 flavors that have no business sharing a container. It works completely. The caramel corn at Garrett's, made from a recipe that has not changed in 75 years, cooked in open copper kettles, is sweet and slightly salty and deeply caramelized. The cheese corn, bright yellow, powdery, aggressively cheddar, is the counterpoint. Together, they create a combination that is somehow both flavors simultaneously without either one winning. The hand reaches into the bag for 1 piece and comes out with 3. This is the design. Garrett popcorn shops now operate in multiple cities internationally. The lines at the Michigan Avenue flagship are a Chicago institution. Tourists photograph the line as often as the popcorn. The Chicago Mix tin is the Chicago souvenir that visitors carry home in addition to whatever else they bought. Chicago is the city that the World's Fair visited twice, and both times it left something behind. The 1893 fair gave America Cracker Jack, the chocolate brownie, juicy fruit gum, the Ferris wheel, and the vision of what a planned city could look like. The 1933 fair gave America the Chicago-style hot dog, the Depression-era solution of turning a hot dog into a nutritionally complete meal by piling 7 vegetables on it. The Italian beef was invented because Depression-era economics required stretching a small roast into a substantial sandwich. The Twinkie was invented because a Chicago baker didn't want to waste his cake pans. Wrigley's gum was invented because a Philadelphia soap salesman kept finding that the free thing he gave away was more popular than the thing he was selling. The jibarito was invented by a Puerto Rican man in Chicago who read a recipe in a newspaper. The flaming saganaki was invented by a Greek restaurant owner who wanted theater. The Chicago mix that should not work has been working for 75 years. Not every city gave the world a snack that was immortalized in baseball's anthem before the inventor had sold 1 million boxes. Not every city invented a dessert because a socialite didn't want to use a fork. Not every city set cheese on fire and invented a dining tradition that traveled back to the country of origin.